Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Okay, welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining the Virginia Key Beach Park Trust, as well as today we're partnering with the Black Police Precinct Museum and Courthouse. So today what we have planned, we do have some grab-and-go food that is going to be catered by Indie Plates Catering. That we have some delicious options for you guys. And then we're also going to be having a presentation by the Black Police Precinct. So we're joined here today by some representatives from the Black Police Precinct. But I did want to talk a little bit about the history of this park and the trust, as you guys all know too well, okay? So again, our park was established in 1945 due to a protest, okay? It was members of the community that gathered together in order to have this beach opened up. During segregation in Miami, everyone did not have free access to the beach. There was restrictions based on the Jim Crow laws. And of course, this was changed by members of the community. So just to honor some names, we have Judge Lawson Thomas, we have Ira Davis, we have Reverend Gibson and Reverend Graham, along with countless other members that helped to fight to change that. So this park that we're standing in today has been open since 1945 and has been a safe haven for the community to come out. And we have, of course, so many memories here that we preserve today. And the park was closed in the 80s due to financial reasons by the city. And then eventually this place was saved again by members of the community that got together in the early 2000s and formed the trust. So today that trust still exists to manage the space and to host events like this and work on our community back here through educational programming. And that trust today is ran by our executive director, Ms. Ashley Edwards, who I'll let say a few words.
Thank you, ma'am. So as Maya stated, this place is historic, and we try our best to have community engagements events like this one, workshops where we try to educate the individuals about the historic place that we're in today. We were very intentional in making sure that we could have a Black History event meeting this year. We know that we knew that the community has been asking if we can host more events, we can get them involved, and we're really happy to have everyone here today. So once again, my name is Ashley Edwards. Yes, I'm named after Ashley Range, who's the original founder of Historic Virginia Key Beach. And I want to thank everyone for coming, and I'm excited for you guys to see.
Okay, so coming up, I want to introduce the Black Police Precinct Museum and Courthouse representatives. So one interesting thing that we did promote on the flyer, that the Black Police Precinct Courthouse is very unique to Miami. It is the only that we know of in the United States city that actually had a separate courthouse system for the Black community, and we're going to dive a little bit into that. So today, representing the museum, we have here Miss LaCriscia Fowlkes, and she is the education manager over at the Black Police Precinct. And over at the front, you guys ran into Larry Sattler, and he is also a docent in archives, and who is displaying some of those archival materials. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It's exciting to be here today with you all. It's been a lot to prepare for, and in the current state and climate that we are in, it has been very interesting for me to say, yes, I can still do this presentation. I watched the news this morning and I was like, don't change the direction. Don't change the direction. So I'm excited to be here. We're here with Larry as well. thank you all for being a part of the initiative to come out and actually be a part of this. I thank you to Maya and Luis and Athlete for having us out here. We're excited about the partnership and understanding and helping people understand how important our spaces are in Miami. Not just Black Miami, in Miami. Thank you to Larry, and of course I give credit to Terrence Cribbs Laurent, who is our executive director at the Black Police Precinct and Courthouse Museum. The official name is the City of Miami Black Police Precinct and Courthouse Museum. That is what we are registered under. And though we are not fully funded by the city, we do have grant funds that come through our CRA currently. We're looking for bright people that can still continue to support and donate to us, because in this climate that we're in, this is not on anything I wrote today. In this climate that we are in, we know our funding is going to decrease.
Yes.
And we know our funding is going to decrease even from the entities that serve us, whether it's city government or county government. And we are here for that plea. For all of our organizations that are here in Miami-Dade County, I am that plea today, right? Remember us in your wills, in your trust. Remember us in your daily giving. Remember us, because most Black people grow up, if you grew up in a church community that said tithes and offering is what you should bring to the storehouse, also remember that these organizations are also storehouses for that tithe, right? We have to understand that tithing does not, if you're giving of your heart, God rewards that, right? That's what that tithe is supposed to be. But if you give to an organization who is going to be diligent in working your dollars to the best of their abilities, you have Virginia Key, you have the Black Police Precinct and Courthouse Museum to consider where that money goes. They didn't plan that. I didn't plan that. Thank you, Spirit. But the reality is today, I'm not going to take up a whole lot of your time, but I'm going to take up some of your time. And I'm going to start off initially with a few things. I'm going to walk through this history in Miami with you. I'm going to walk through some of my personal history so you can understand how this presentation is set up, but I do have a few trigger warnings. I will be using the word Negro and Black, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion is Black America's dream in this country. If people didn't fight, beg, plead, make deals, we wouldn't have some of the things that we have today. We still see this going on in community today, right? The meeting before the meeting after the meeting, and the meetings that we don't know about. That's still going on. Miami was built on the back of Blacks and Indigenous people, right?
Yes.
We sometimes forget that. After 20 years, I've lived here for 20 years, and after 20 years of living here in Miami, I still see where the color divide is still present.
Yes.
I have watched Narcos and Griselda, right? TV shows on Netflix. And so still the hands and the attentions of policing has not been the best with all of that has gone on. And seriously, the KKK still lives. It just took on different it took on different places and faces as time has gone on. And we must acknowledge that, right? In order for us to acknowledge that, they must acknowledge that. And lastly, we'll talk a little about those who mistake power for service. And that's what I see a lot today. We got a lot of power and little service. This is me.
There you are.
I am the educational manager at the Precinct. And I must say, originally, when I moved to Miami in 2004, I was not on a plight of anything, right? I moved down from Virginia.
Hey.
So I'm from Virginia originally, rural Virginia. And when I moved down to Miami, it was so I could come to school at Barry University.
Okay.
I got my MBA, my business administrative master's, as well as a master's in sports management. And in that time, I was like, everybody was like, are you going to just go for your education and come back? But when I drove into the city with my best friend, my spirit said, I'm home. Mm-hmm. My spirit has yet to tell me I'm not home anymore, right? Even with all the ups and downs I've experienced, it hasn't said this isn't my home still. But I grew up in Virginia. And these maps that you see represent the Confederate Trail, the Civil War trail that goes through the state of Virginia. I grew up in the state of the Confederacy. So all of this is what shapes my viewpoint of history. This is Richmond. This is my hometown of Blackstone. You see the number 5, you see 13 here, you see all the stars. They represent some type of Civil War action or activity that happened in Virginia. That is what shapes who I am. I am also shaped by Prince Edward County deciding not to have education for their students between 1950, Prince Edward County, 1959 to 1964. Prince Edward County refused to open schools because they did not want integration. I grew up with that story in the back of my head, right? My parents made sure I knew that story. They shut down all the schools from 1959 to 1964 because they did not want to integrate. They got state funding to open up white private schools.
You still do.
So Black students were left in the cold. That's what I bring with me to the table. Also, I grew up in the county I grew up in is called Nottoway, which was taken from Nottawa, which was an Indian tribe. They changed the name because they couldn't pronounce it, I guess. And that's what I grew up. There was a black high school built called Luther H. Foster Senior High School. That is the high school my parents went to. When integration happened, instead of keeping the name of the school and the honor of this president of Virginia State College, which is now Virginia State University, instead of keeping his name on the building, they changed it to Nottoway High School, right? They still kept the building, became a county building, but they didn't keep the reverence of the name. My parents always told me about the reverence of the name and how they went through school and what that importance meant. However, it wasn't until 1995 when they started an alumni association, and that's when it was brought to the county's attention. Oh, they changed the name of the school. So in honor of that, that is what I come with when it comes to my knowledge of what we've been through from my lens. So when I moved to Miami, and they said, oh, Virginia Key used to be where Black people could go. Initially, of course, Virginia was the part that caught me, right?
Right.
And then I learned the history.
Mm.
And I'm sitting here going through our history, and I wanted to do this representation of exactly when and how we got to policing where we are when this precinct opened to now. If you look at all the areas, they've tried to instill fear in us, from witch hunts to slave patrols to the KKK and now ICE. Can I say that?
Yes.
ICE is giving so much fear to our community, to the people that serve with us. And it's devastating because if you look at the patterns, we had slavery up into the Reconstruction era. The Reconstruction era was so short when Black people were awarded the benefit of being on town councils and city government and all. And then Jim Crow laws came in and kicked all of that right out the door. Jim Crow took up all of this time, and you have the Miami Incorporation in that time period, right? So Miami was incorporated with the 162 Black men who signed the charter. Without those men, they would not have had enough men to sign. Now, whether they were coerced or just making sure that they had land here to sign this charter, we still question. But they were there. And Silas Austin was the first Black person to sign, maybe because his name was Austin. But just to say a Black man was the first one to sign the charter is so prideful to me. It is something that we have to remember as we go through these changes in times. We were very significant. The land was cultivated by Bohemians because they understood the ground. We have to still stand on their shoulders as we move forward. But when it comes to policing, you have your witch hunts that happened early on. You have your slave patrols. You have your KKK. You have ICE today. Slave patrols ended up turning into militias. Those militias really was the KKK, right? The KKK then formed police forces to enforce the law. Understand that even here in Miami, the true training that happened after they decided they needed Black officers. That's what I've been told. That's what my research has led me to. So, slave patrols, KKK, today we have ICE.
Before the bright lights, before the first banner was raised, long before legends made their claim to fame from a basketball game, 5 men marched through the heat, bound to a badge and to the hope of those who believed. Those in Overtown, Colortown, Coconut Grove, 5 men were given a shot to patrol the blocks that people call home. No squad cars, no sirens, no steel to wheel, just 5 men in uniform standing firm in the field. We know them as police pioneers, the bold and the brave. The first 5 sworn in with pride, I say these names. Ralph White, John Miller, Clyde Lee, Moody Hall, Edward Kimball, don't let history hide these. These men pushed the limits and reworked the game. The first 5 with badges and a system to change. They became protectors, defenders, a symbol of hope in a time when oppression left communities choked. Gave people a vision of progression when the system was broke. But this isn't the full story, so let me give you the scope. They wore the badge, but it came with conditions and some restrictions. Remember, they came up in a system designed to divide and dismiss them, to keep them confined and in line when the powers that be outlined their position. They were told, you will not have cruisers. You can walk your bike. You can police your people, but don't address the whites. You wear that uniform by day, but take it off by night. Every bike ride, every beat they walk was a statement louder than the hate they fought. They paid the cost and carried the torch. The first 5 grew to 50 strong, expanded the force. Each new recruit was a brick in the fight, a spark in the dark of reclaiming the rights. Let's remember their names and put them in lights. Ralph, Clyde, Moody, John, Edward, all 5. The original overseers of Overtown and Coconut Grove, who set the course for a future they could have never known. From a badge to a ball, from the streets to the stadium, the first five evolved from Jim Crow to gymnasiums. Remember their plight as we honor their struggle, the journey, the fight. It's the road they paved that fueled this drive, and there's no way we get the legends of today without the first five.
So I will make sure I send that link out. But it's so important because the Heat just did a commemorative piece earlier this month. And so to see that piece come together right before this presentation, I got excited, right? So I had to drop it in because we do need to say their names. We need to say Ref White, John Millage, Clyde Lee, Ed Kimball, and Moody Hall. As many times as we can say their name, we uplift their courage, their spirit, and everything that they had to deal with in those days, right? So we know for sure that these three men listed at top, Reverend John Palmer, Dr. Ira P. Davis, and Captain James E. Scott, were very instrumental to the movement of Black people here in Miami. And I don't have him listed on this slide, but Judge Lawson Thomas was instrumental in a lot of the changes that we saw happening in Miami back in the day. These five men that you see on the screen that they talk about in the video are what started community policing for not only this community, but around the South and ultimately, I believe, the United States. If it was not for their courage, they walked into a situation they didn't know what it would be. They were selected. This five is 5 out of 15 men who were chosen to be trained to be officers for the Negro community in Miami. This is after the population grew after World War II, after you have this influx of people coming back from war, settling in the South, and they say Overtown became a slum. Overtown became overcrowded because we were regulated to only live in Overtown and then Liberty City. You had settlers already in Coconut Grove, but they weren't thinking about them initially at the time when it came to policing. Because Overtown had the bars, the juke joints, the entertainment pieces. In one article it said the whorehouse. They everywhere. You got sex is in the Bible.
Thank you.
So if we ain't figured out, so the things that we experience now, we know have existed for a long time. And yes, they might cause some crime, they might be disorderly, but back in those days, the crimes truly did and were a representation of what most people didn't want to see. I can go outside and cuss all I want to today. And some days that happened. But back in these days, I would have got arrested. I would have got arrested for profanity. I would have got arrested for saying something against someone else. I would have been arrested for many things during this time frame. So these men that got sworn in, they got sworn in. If you see the faces on some of the pictures of some of the white officers and administration in the back, they have serious frowns on their face. They don't want this to happen. And they sometimes still act like they don't want it to happen. The precinct was built in 1950. So they got sworn in 44. The building wasn't built into 1950. And profanity, possession of moonshine. You can go to the liquor store and get moonshine these days. And so they built it with a booking area, holding cells, a courtroom, and a one-story addition, which is now our activity room, happened in 1957. It was established to handle minor crimes, and the building ran 24/7. So you had officers bringing in people. You also had in the courtroom, judges were constantly seeing and defending individuals that may have been picked up for infractions. The Central Negro District is where we first started, so that's what they called the Overtown area, and that's where cops, as they expanded, they started having cops go to Liberty City. And then in 45, the Coconut Grove cops were designated, and then they built a satellite office there. So there were offices in Coconut Grove and really just downtown during that time frame. You are now authorized to arrest other Negroes. Don't touch no white person. You have no authority over whites. Yes, ma'am.
You're standing in front over.
There you go.
I'm sorry about that. You are and have no authority over whites. What job benefits did they get? They got none. Whites had everything: job security, retirement benefits, and they were classified as civil servants. Blacks back in those days, they didn't have job security. There was no retirement benefits, and they were not classified as civil servants initially. It wasn't until the second Black officer died in the line of duty that they then formed an organization for the Black cops, and that is when they changed them from patrolmen to policemen. Patrolmen didn't have benefits. Police officers or policemen did. So that's when they got their benefits. So death benefits, if something happened in the line of duty, they would be covered by the union. But it took them a while. Virginia Key Beach also had policing. You have George Busby on mounted patrol. You have Officer Newman Harrison, who was controlling the parking lot. But at one point, you could only get to Virginia Key Beach by using a ferry. And so in those ferry days, we have a red line memo stating that the Negroes are riding the ferry with the Negroes to come to the beach, right? There was policing on the ferry to make sure they didn't do anything reckless and they got here safely. But we have a red line memo. Red line memos are the memos that they use internally at the police office, and them using that to communicate what is happening, how we're doing. They got a lot of letters from other states to see how they were dealing with stuff. So in this, let's think about this. Nabbed, white man, Negro school teacher at Florida motel. 1955. A 34-year-old white man was arrested with a Negro school teacher in a room at Miami's Booker Terrace. Some of you may only know that now as the Hampton House. Was charged with vagrancy. Police went to the motel on a complaint and arrested 26-year-old Lorna Smith and Clyde H. Chewing. When I was doing some research at the Hampton House, I researched what actually showed up in Jet magazine. And when I saw this police case, can you imagine what happens if only white cops show up at this scene?
Yes.
All the Negroes go to jail. In this case, they both went to jail because interracial dating and marriage and all of that was not in law. That had to come into law with Loving versus Virginia, again, Virginia. Much later, And I can only imagine what this would have been like if there were no Black officers around. Because the reality is that the community pled for Black officers, because anytime a white officer showed up, it could have gotten worse. The situation gets worse. The situation is not handled, or you've got to fend for yourself, right? So the plea for Black officers really came from those gentlemen, because there was lawlessness only because you didn't want to protect us. You didn't want to protect us from ourselves, nor did you want to protect us from other white offenders that may be harming us. So in this way, in this case, it was very funny to me that this landed in Jet Magazine, because Jet Magazine is the celebration of Blackness, but also they had crime reports in Jets early on, and this was one of the ones that showed up. You have to acknowledge making sure I'm on time, acknowledge the accomplishments of some of the first 5 officers and officers who came through the building we actually work out of. So you have Leroy Smith, who joined the force in 50, became the first Black major in 74. Chief Dixon made history when he became the chief in 1985. Perry Anderson became a commander and also was a part of the motor unit in 1980. Robert Ingham was the first motorman. He also then served as mayor of Opa-lawka, and he was a school board member at one time. And Judge Thomas was the first appointed Black police precinct judge, and he presided from 1950 to the 60s. In the first year, they handled 6,374 cases. First year. And brought in more than $60,000. Now, we all know, I can say $20 today and feel like that's not a lot of money. You know $20 was a lot of money back then, right? And though it's still a lot of money now, if you ain't got no money, $20 is still a lot of money. But these pieces of cases understand that they brought in $60,000 and the activity of crime and all was cut by 50%. I understand you. You understand me. We know what's happening in the community, and that's where this precinct still gives us credit today. In July of so when it closed in 63, the precinct really went uninhabited, and then a group of retired officers said, we need to save this building. This building was set to be demolished, like the Hampton House, like many other Black buildings in the city. Judge Thomas' office is still standing only because they saved it and they fought for it, and they made sure it was a historical landmark. What do you think they were going to turn this plot of land into? Condos, new apartment buildings, parking lots. Parking lot.
Wow.
If we don't pay attention, that's what's going to happen to all of the places that we care about. It could have easily just turned into a marker that said, hey, this was standing here. We have a lot of those markers in the community. But luckily, we had retired officers that said, no, this place has history, and it's our history. And they fought to save the building. The commission then decided, okay, we'll give you $125,000 in a block grant. We're going to save it. The retired officers City of Miami Retired Police Community Benevolent Association is really those gentlemen coming together saying, we're gonna save this building. That's why we still have a museum today. So to talk about policing today, community policing, if you think about this movement, we have memos from around the country and letters from the South of people from Georgia, South Carolina, writing our police chiefs here going, how are y'all dealing with the Negroes? Right? How are you handling the Negroes, basically?
Really?
Yeah. Because this was nothing that was happening in other places. So understanding the significance of Miami's history in the policing piece, please understand that if it was not for those first five to integrate into a system that was run by militia groups, this is a significant change to how policing was being handled in the South. So they were trying to figure out then what does this mean? And so on a news article that came out of the Herald, they coined this as the Negro Officers for Negroes movement, right?
Okay.
Negroes Officers for Negroes movement. So if we look at the definitions of community policing, I looked this one up in Oxford. A system allocating police officers to particular areas so that they become familiar with the local inhabitants. If you think about the construction of the Black Police Precinct and those that joined the force initially, they truly were being hired to protect the communities they came out of, the communities they were raised in, and understanding who those people are. I understand my neighbors, they understand me. I also understand why this one might be selling liquor out of their closet. I also might understand why this one over here needs me to watch their house when they go on vacation, right? So if I understand what's happening in community with community, then it is easier for me to make sure that my neighbors are taken care of. I know what resources they need in the community. And I also understand the community at its heart. To be at the police precinct now and to work with retired officers and hear their stories of how they police the streets of Miami. Many of them worked out of the North Station when they became cops, working out of Liberty City. I get to hear their stories of telling someone, hey, it's Christmas time. I don't need y'all out in the street this week. Y'all gotta take y'all drugs somewhere else because I need the kids to be able to play in the streets during Christmas, right? That's a conversation that was had because community knew the police officer and the police officer knew the community. And I can tell you what I want you to do because you respect me with the lens of, you know, I'm here to make sure this community still survives and thrives. But today, your criminal activity is no longer wanted. And though it might not cut out criminal activity altogether, but those kids during that Christmas season was able to get their toys, go outside and play. Didn't have to worry about a drive-by shooting. Didn't have to worry about gun violence showing up at the house because that cop had the conversation. We're not having conversations anymore in this way. We have officers that present as being scared, or at least that's what the media wants us to believe. They're scared of us. They're scared of the people of color. They don't know what they're gonna do. But if you came from the community, lived in the community, and understood the neighborhood, that's the police I want in my community.
Exactly.
And it's not based on color. Because if you grow up in a place and understand the place, then you understand the people, and then you can police them better. So my definition is what I believe came out of 1944. When they looked at those first police officers, they came from the community, they had high character, they were respected, they had familiar, I can't say this word today. And I wrote it. Thank you. And knowledge of local inhabitants. And they also got training. So officer said, LaCriscia, most people, if before this happened, from their knowledge, a white officer could come from another county, another place and space, say, I want to be an officer, protect and serve. If you are part of a militia group and an association with the KKK, I'm sure that was easy to join. Swear me in. I'm here. But when it came to the black officers, they took them to Scott projects, put them under training. We don't know what the training was. There's no record of what that training was. But we know they came out, 15 went down to 5. But after that 5, the black officers started growing, because that's how many black people were inhabiting Miami, right? Liberty City, Overtown, Coconut Grove. Because your law said this is the only places we can live also. So if we did practices based on hiring individuals for particular areas based on their familiarity, can you imagine what policing would be like today? Would we be scared? Would we be scared if a neighbor got pulled over? Would we have more incidences? I don't know. But my heart says if we concentrated more in making sure that the officers that are placed in our communities, if they understand the people and are familiar with the people, are familiar with their habits, you're not going to walk around my community scared. You're going to walk around my community empowered to serve, not empowered to be powered, to be powerful, to overrun, to overdo. So we have to really go back and look at what we want then and now. I was hired to protect and serve, but back then I used to know my neighbors. Is this area good or bad? When I first moved down here, I was told don't go west of 95 by a black person. Don't go west of 95. Do y'all know how much I missed out on in the first year of me living here? A whole lot. A whole lot. Because everything west of 95 is black. So I was told black ain't right. But I'm a black person that needs to serve in my community. People in the area are good or bad. These people will not listen to my authority. That's what I see when I watch the news this morning. The case that is coming out of another state where correctional officers beat a man to death. They beat him to death. And they are still saying they are not guilty. I'm not guilty. But the only reason we know that they beat him is because some of it was caught on body cam. So how, if there were no body cams and we transfer back to 1990, 1980, we didn't know what was happening. But now we get to see it regularly, and it's time for us to reclaim our voice in this space. Because we are powerful. We are strong. You is kind. No. But we have to get away from I don't understand these people, right? That knowledge of not understanding these people is not working in society today. It's just not working. So we have to be more aware of what's to come. These are some statistics from the 2024 website that tracks police violence. At least 1,252 people were killed by police in 2024. Some of these statistics that you see up here are only because some states still report. They report what is happening in their state. Some states are not reporting, and some states are underreporting their numbers. But it's important for us to look at the numbers, to see the numbers, and understand the numbers, and then we have to reconcile as individuals and as citizens, what number don't I want to show up in my neighborhood? And how can we do that? So it's a matter of becoming aware and powerful. It's the police violence report, again, in this chart, unarmed, not alleged to be threatening. These are the individuals that were killed. 30% non-threatening, 31% unarmed, 25% of all police killings. That's all Black. Hispanics are far behind. And we can be light and bright as we want.
I know that's right.
But if they detect, assume, and know that you fit in these categories, we are still fighting that battle of not dying at the hands of police. We, at the precinct, some of you will see that we have some bookmarks on the table, and a large part of what I am designed to do at the police precinct is to make sure that people are aware of what's going on with the laws and having conversations that carry us forward in a conversation or a movement. And so part of that is knowing the law, where awareness plus education equals smarter choices. How many of you know, and I reported on this last year, how many of you have ever attended a party or commemorative event where balloons were released? How many of you know that there's a law, it's against the law now? It's against the law now.
Why? Yeah, the environment.
You can tell.
Because you have electricity wires, and it get hung up in electricity wires, and there's all kind of other things that need to get in. So that's why it's against the law.
Yes. And so, and I told some kids this back in the fall when it first came out, and the kids were like, "Well, I was just at one the other day, Miss LaCriscia," and I was like, "Yeah, y'all got away with it. It's okay." But at the same time, understand that there are laws coming out repeatedly that we may not know about. Just did last year, they approved that a woman that has had a child that may get selected for jury duty, they can ask for an excusal. I bet every pregnant woman want to know that now, right? Yes, sir.
Let me just mention this, okay? Any girl over 12 years old that get pregnant, she's considered an adult after she get pregnant the first time.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. Any
That's
and the reality is, think about this 12-year-old girl and how she got there, right?
Exactly.
She might not have got there in a consensual relationship.
That's right. You're right.
Is she?
Let me just mention that was laws way back from the 1700s that's still on the books
That's
today.
still on the books today.
Okay, because if we transport, I'm a paramedic for the fire department. If we transport a person to the hospital or anything, and they say, "Oh, we're 16 years old," the first thing we ask them, "Do you have a child or not?" If that person has a child, we can take them to the hospital on their own recognizance instead of having a parent or anybody else recognize anything to go into the hospital with them. If they're under 18 years old and haven't had a baby yet, we got to call a parent to get authorization.
Wow. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I did
I will
not
be
know.
calling
I
you
did not know. All right.
for a segment of knowing the law. Yes. So I mean those are the pieces now that we.
When I was working for the school board, they had a 10-year-old got raped from her uncle. And she's considered as an adult.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anytime they get pregnant, first time,
You're pregnant.
you have a baby, any girl or whatever, I don't care what age she is. After, well, they make it in law that say 12 years old because they don't expect anybody under 12 to get pregnant.
She was 10.
But I'm saying that may be still within the law. That's probably on borderline of what the law is going to state because she's under, 12.
And I think that the thing that we have to think about that there are some laws that are still on the books from 1800 years ago. They're still on the books. No one today is expecting a kid that's 12 years old to be considered an adult, whether they got pregnant or didn't get pregnant, right? No one is considering that. And the age of consent in the state of Florida is 16. I can choose at 16 what I want to do in this room with this boy or grown man. But the grown man got to be within an age range unless my parents can still go to court. But it's understanding the laws that are on the books.
Let me just say one more
Yes,
thing,
sir.
okay? In the state of Florida, once you get 16 years old, you don't have to go to high school no more.
You don't.
You can drop out and be as an adult for yourself at the age of 16 years old.
Yes. And you have to understand those laws are on the books. So I can be 16, tell my parents I ain't doing this no more and drop out of school. But also I can go to school every day. I can go to school every day for 13 years. I missed 3 days of school out of my 13 years of going to school, elementary to high school. 3 days. The only reason I missed those 3 days was because two of my siblings had chickenpox and I didn't want to go to school by myself. Otherwise, I would have had perfect attendance for all 13 years of school.
Wow.
Right? And that happened in the 2nd grade. But these kids down here can go to school for all 13 years, matriculate, and graduate with a certificate of completion. A certificate of completion gives you nothing. It is not equivalent to a diploma. It is not equivalent to a GED. And though I saw the lady who was trying to get a certificate of completion out of circulation in the state of Florida. So it is not an option, right? In listening to the sessions of our state government last year, they would not vote with her to get the certificate of completion removed as an option.
That's ridiculous.
That's what our state government is doing. Yes.
When you talk about things of age, okay, nowadays you can't even get a job at McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, anywhere else if you don't have a high school diploma. So they use all these things against when you go down there to get a job. This is the way it is. You're white, they look at all your positive things. You're black, they look at all the negative things, not the high. So you got to remember where you stand in how things are set up nowadays. And it's even getting worse since Trump is president. Okay? I also want you to ask one question.
Yes.
How many people in here have been to the Black History Museum? The police Black History Museum.
I'm hoping I don't get a lot of hands because I need y'all to come out.
We can plan a trip
Yes.
to go over there.
Yes. We really do want you to come out. And a few hands went up, but not all hands went up. So please come out and understand, because I really am just giving you an overview of all the history that's there. But it truly is a place of where we are trying our best to empower community to understand what's coming through the laws. On our website right now, we have a conversation with the past director of the Department of Transportation here in the county, and we talk about how much time does it take to plan all the things that are happening for the highway systems and all. They are planning last year they were planning for 2050. This year, they're going to be planning for 2051. So understand that the stuff that is happening in Overtown right now with the reconstruction of some of the highways and all, and it's impeding yet again the part of the county you decided to run the highways through, and disrupt the community that was there. That was planned 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So we have to be aware and understand, if we're not in these planning sessions, we have no voice. And I don't have all the answers because I'm still trying to figure out how to get in some of these planning sessions myself. But we have to make sure it happens. Yes, ma'am.
I want to know, I remember about the black thing, but what I want to know, do we still have our black pool over time?
If the pool was at Williams Park,
Yeah, so it's still there?
there is a pool still there. That pool is not run year round only because there's no heating system in it. The pool at Gibson Park is there. That runs year round because they have a heating system in it. There have been changes to the park systems that I've been working on some committees with, but parks were not, just like Virginia Key needed to be created for Blacks, parks weren't open to Blacks during the civil rights movement, during Jim Crow, right? So it's understanding where those are. And that probably, the place where they have the pool at probably should be there. So, in conclusion, plan your visits today. We're here, we can get your phone numbers, we can follow up. Become a member, we talked about financing before. And then staying connected. If you want to know and you go to our website, you can sign up for our newsletter that will give you an abundance of information of what's going on, what's going in, knowing the law and those pieces. Yes.
But where do you generally advertise, put out information? Because I'm curious, because I'm like, I have not seen or heard of this particular organization, this particular museum.
Mm-hmm.
So where are you putting your literature
So,
for Black communities to get the information?
So we have been in articles in the Miami Times. We do some advertising when it comes to Soul Basel and all. We have during Art Week, we usually have a new exhibit go up at the police precinct. So that brings in other people and individuals to our community. And then interestingly enough, a lot of our visitors are from out of town because they see us on TripAdvisor or they see us on Google and they're looking for things to do. I can't tell you the number of international people that we see a month. And I'm talking Germany, Italy, Russia, yes, French, and Chinese people that come through the museum. Here locally, we try to partner in these situations to get more awareness because someone may be aware of Virginia Key, not aware of us. So that's part of our collaborations in the community. And we that's why we are doing Knowing the Law and trying to push educational tools so people know we're not only here as this facility, as a museum, but we are also in the community, understanding what's happening in community and making sure you are aware of the things that are either coming down the pike or a celebration of what has happened that we have rah-rahed behind as far as community pieces. But we need your help in making sure that people know we are here, especially local Miamians. And we're trying to figure out, we have started the process of doing oral histories because your history, your personal history is Black history, right? We don't think of the value of our life story, even going to school every day. what you endured during those times, what you have experienced in your life living here in Miami creates the Black story. So I invite you all to share your stories of living in Overtown, Liberty City, Coconut Grove, Miami Gardens, right? I encourage you to share an oral history because your history will affect someone else. Your story can always be that shining light for someone else. And that's what I would encourage everyone to come and do. We can take 30 minutes, an hour, have a conversation, a chat on your life story with some guided questions so we can get your family's history recorded. Because a lot of people don't know they're making history until history is already made. So if we do our diligence in recording the stuff that we do as individuals, that will not only show up in an obituary, but it could show up in a story that lives online for people to know and understand your plight in this world. Yes.
Yeah, I just have a statement. Thank you for this opportunity this afternoon. Have you guys visited many? I see we have many seniors that are here, and I saw a bus outside. But did that bus come from senior centers or
Charles Hadley Park.
Hadley Park? Yeah, have you guys made presentations maybe to Ferguson or Cola? Because I think that when you mention wills and trusts, because I know my mother, she's speaking to her attorney about money set aside and what have you. But if you go with that attitude, I mean, with that mindset, and deliver the same message to some of these senior centers, many of them don't know it.
We do it with Charles Hadley.
You do that?
We have people come in and talk to us about will trusts and everything.
Yes, and so that money they can place for Virginia Key for the police precinct, and let them be aware that these opportunities are available, that they can include these groups. Because I grew up over town. My mother's from South Carolina, Alabama, moved down to Overtown. So when you mentioned that, I said, okay, wow, I never thought that could be possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that they can be encouraged to give some money to these places that are part of their history and contribution to man.
Yes, thank you for that comment. And I can say I haven't done enough presentations out in the community. So you have just given me my assignment.
Yeah, look at some of the seniors. I think they're Cola, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Charles Hadley, Cola, and Ferguson, many of you are, you know.
Yes. Larry, put it on the list. Yes.
Okay, good afternoon. We have a group here from Charles Hadley Park, Carrie Mead Center, Seniors on the Move, and also part of the Charles Hadley Neighborhood Association. And first I want to let you know that some of us have met Terrence Laurent. He has been to the Charles Hadley Park Senior Center. He is actually working with us on getting a marker for the railroad shop colored edition. Yeah. Some of you may have seen him in the park. He's very colorful in his attire, very warm. Yes. So some of you may have seen him come in for a couple of meetings. So I do want to let you know that we've already met him and we have been engaged with him from the Charles Hadley Neighborhood Association. Also, while I'm up, this is my opportunity to give a thank you to Virginia Key Beach, Ms. Anthony Edwards, Maya, everyone. When we needed transportation to come to this event, we went to several places and we were told no. We were told that you didn't give us enough time, we need 2 months notice in advance. But when we came to Ms. Athley and Maya and her staff, a week before the event, they said yes. Okay.
Thank
So I
you.
wanted to make and the seniors will go to other events, but the thing is, we need transportation. And so there's a lot to go into arranging it. So if any of you have activities that you want us to come to, and you can make arrangements for us to get the transportation. And I've already spoken to young man about us going to the precinct,
Yes.
we will be happy to come.
Okay. We're gonna figure out how to make that happen.
We'll be happy.
So I would like to personally, oh, yes.
Many of you don't know, my pastor was the Reverend Robert B. Engel for 10 years. I was the president of the Pastor's Aid Board. Let me tell you, he's passed on and gone to bed.
Come over here so we can hear you good. This is a good story, so we want to give you an opportunity to tell it. And that's why we have these events. Tell us your name.
My name is Barbara Thompson. My pastor was the late Reverend Robert B. Ingram. Robert B. Ingram was my pastor for 10 years. I was the president of the Pastor's Aid Board, which I took care of him for 10 years. He has told me a lot of stories. He's dead and gone, but I will not repeat them. He went to hell and back. He was the first riding police officer. When they see him coming, they say, "Here come Bob." Everybody. Because they know that Robert did not play. Let me tell you how powerful he is. All of the children in our church, he notified the schools that they were in. If they were rude, if they had a problem, let him know. My son, after service, he said, "Dontrell, I want to see you in my office." Here I go. Here go Dontrell go. We sit down. He says to Dontrell, "Why did you have a tack in your finger and shook this girl's hand and pinched her with it?" I raised up my hand. Could I be dismissed? I got out of there quick and in a hurry. And I'm saying to myself, how did Reverend Ingram know that? But he sent his scouts out in the school board. As you know, he was on the board of the school board. This patch today that they wear on their uniforms say the city of Miami, Reverend Ingram designed that. A lot of people don't know that. I told the city of Miami, "Come one time, you want to make you some money? Get a bet and ask your fellow officers who designed this patch. And if they let them bet you some money. And when they don't know, let them pay you first, then you tell them." So he was a great man, a loss to this community. We still love him now. We went to so many things. We went to so many things that we were tired of buying after 5 clothes. So I said to him one day, "Reverend, offer these to the members of the church, because we tired. You drag us every week to some event. Let us rest." He was a community person, and he loved his black people. You come first, and he keep you in line. This man that went down to the Miami Herald and shot himself, I can't. Arthur Till. I was at the church sewing Reverend Ingram robe. I said, "I got to find you another robe because you just keep tearing this one up." And a knock came to the door. It was Tim. He said, "Is Reverend Ingram here?" I said, "Yes, it is. Wait one moment." I went, I said, "Reverend, Arthur Till is outside. He want to speak to you." He said, "Barbara, let him in." He went in the office and he talked to him and he come out. And a week later, this man go down there and kill himself. So after church that Sunday, I said, "Reverend Ingram, I know you didn't tell that man to go down there and kill himself now." He said, "No, I didn't. But I gave him advice to do the right thing." And he was a coward. He didn't do the right thing. You gotta pray. Prayer is the key to every answer. And God will take care of you if you trust Him and you obey. Trust and obey to be happy with Jesus is to trust Him and obey. He ain't forgot about you. You just got to wait on Him. He's the boss. You pray, and from your heart, not from your tongue, from your heart. Only the pure in heart you see Jesus. You pray from your heart, and God gonna set us free. You watch and see. We got a president, but he's not the king. God is the king of this universe, and you just sit and wait, because God never lies and He never fails. Amen.
So trust and believe that this partnership with Virginia Key Beach Park Trust, Historic Virginia Key Beach, and the Black Precinct, we wanted to make sure that during this Black History Month, we were able to do something for the community. But I want you to understand that Black History Month for us is 365. It's not 28 days for us, because of what we believe in, what our mission, what our vision is, to make sure that we, one, tell our story, two, preserve the place, and make sure that everybody understands where we're coming from and where we're going. So I just want to make sure that everybody is involved. We will be utilizing your information to give you updates on our museum. We do have the Virginia Key Beach Museum that is slated to be built within the next 18 months. We're working diligently and we're working hard to make sure that the stories that we're here today, the stories that we've had in the past, the stories that we want to tell are going to take place in that museum, and that they're going to be here for a very long time. So once again, my name is Athlete. I would like to thank Maya and Luis, the two individuals in the green shirt. When I started here under 2 years ago, I told them that we wanted to have lunch and learns. We want to educate the public on the Black history of, obviously, the city of Miami, but the Black history here. So we partnered with Black Profiles in Miami with our first lunch and learn. Now we did the Black Precinct here. So the third one, we're going to get a little bit creative, but we're very happy to have you guys. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you.
Okay, again, everyone, thank you for coming out. I do want to make one connection. So when we look at a lot of the Black organizations that was created by our community here in Miami, a lot of these happened very early on compared to other parts of the civil rights movement. So I believe LaCriscia mentioned the first 5 happening in the 40s as well. I think she said 1944. 45 and 44. And then we have the establishment of this beach here also happening in 1945. And a lot of this was due to the energy of our veterans. So we talk here about the double V campaign, and that is considered victory over fascism abroad. So during World War II, America was fighting against fascism on the European continent. And then the other V stands for victory over segregation and oppression here in our home. So in Europe, yes, there was racism, but they did not have the law of segregation like we had here in the United States. So many of our soldiers and our veterans went there and experienced a little bit more freedom and dignity and respect than they experienced in their own homeland that we talked about, that many members of our community helped to build early Miami. So that energy coming back is what really fueled and drive the civil rights movement. So a lot of the popular civil rights protests that most people think of, the bus boycott, Walk on Selma, a lot of these events happened a couple years after a lot of the early events happening right here in Miami. So what I always like to point out in our department, in our education department, we like to point out how significant Miami was in the civil rights movement. When we think of that national story, we need to make sure that we consider our city and our ancestors and this who helped make essentially the civil rights movement make America a better place. So we have the first five, which, as LaCriscia mentioned, was unique to Miami. There was no other city that actually had a divided police force where Black people could govern and police themselves. She mentioned we also have some officers here, Officer Bugsby. We showed a photo of Officer Newman. So from the first five to the protests that happened out in Haulover Beach to establish this beach, Miami has been very significant in the civil rights movement and pushing America forward. So again, we just need to continue to honor and not forget that history to make sure we're part of that national story. So again, thank you all for coming out.